Welcome back to Introduction to Programming. This is video 18 in our series. My name is John Dwayne. In video 17, we began our coverage of file input-output. We covered some theory on files, folders, directories, and drives. You know, if Guy Fieri was a computer guy, he could make a TV series about this. I can see him in that red sports car saying, "See you next time on files, folders, directories, and drives." Well, anyway, back to the serious stuff. We also saw last time the Microsoft Scripting Runtime library and how to add it to your program and how to use some of its features. There are lots more things this library can do, and if you're interested, please read about it on the web. There's plenty of coverage there. Now I got a little rushed at the end of the last video, so I just want to quickly review this Microsoft Scripting Runtime library and the ways I like to use it. First of all, let's look again at the object browser and select the scripting library. So let's go to the IDE, and in the view menu we've got object browser. And so right now we're showing all libraries, but I want to limit it to just the scripting library. And there they are. So when you get more experience writing code in the Microsoft IDEs, either VBA or .NET, you'll find yourself coming to the object browser frequently to find out what your object can do, what methods and properties it has. As you can see here, the scripting library does not have too many objects in it, but it has some good ones. And the best of the bunch is the file system object. You can do a lot with this. I will primarily use it to check to see if a file or a folder exists and to create and delete folders. But as you can see, there are lots of other methods here, so it can do a lot of other things as well, but those are the things I like to use it for. The other two objects I use are file and folder. Our example from last time used these objects to display metadata about the files in a folder, like size and date last modified. So let's look at that. So you can see I defined objects in the beginning of the program, one a file system object, and then a file object and a folder object, and then later on I use them down here where I displayed the metadata. So the name of the file, the date last modified for the file size, and the object is able to get all of this information from the operating system. And then these are all folder references here, so I'm getting the drive, the name of the folder, how many files are in the folder, and the parent folder of that folder. So really useful stuff. Okay, but that's all just scratching the surface. Feel free to read up on this library. It's a great example of how the creators of this language have written libraries to save you time. You could write the code to do all these things, but it would take time and it would clutter up your program unnecessarily. All the general purpose programming languages use this library concept to group together objects with a common theme for use in your program. Okay, so enough of the review. Let's move on to something new. Let's actually use code to open a file. We'll start easy by opening an existing Excel file. And for my money, the best way to do this is to use the macro recorder and then modify the code to suit your needs. We'll move the cursor around, we'll move back and forth between two workbooks, between some sheets, then we'll close the file. We'll do all that with the macro recorder. We'll look at the code that got created, and I'll make some comments about the places where you would do some customization. So let's do that. So I'm in the worksheet that had the programs from last time, but really we just need any worksheet, but we use this one, it's fine. So we'll click Record Macro. I'm going to put this code in the personal macro workbook, so that'll be a separate file from this, but that's fine. And I'll give it a name, file open code. And we'll click OK. And so now we are recording. So I'll go to the File menu. I'm going to look for my zip code database. That's a nice Excel worksheet, so we'll open that. There's all the data, and we can click around a little bit. Maybe I'll go to a different sheet, click around, go back to that sheet. Now I'll switch workbooks. Again, I'm still recording, so I'll go back to the FSO workbook, click around, go to another sheet, go back, and yeah, so back here, and then finally back to the FSO worksheet, and I'm going to stop recording. So let's take a look at the code that was created there. That'll all be in this personal workbook. Alright, so let's take a look here. So file open code, that's what we named it. This one line of code here opens that workbook. So very simple, workbooks, open, and then you give it the file name. Now the workbook is open. So here, using the range object, we're selecting a cell. We added a sheet. You saw me when I was clicking from sheet 1, and it added a sheet. Moved around to another cell, A6. Went back to the sheet I was on before. So see how that works? Sheets. You name the sheet and then select. Now here I'm moving to another workbook. And the way you do that is Windows is the object, so what window do you want to go to? And the windows are named with the file names. And there's FSO, XLSM, activate. So that's the way to go from one workbook to another that's live in memory. So moving around from cell to cell, again adding some sheets, moving from cell to cell, going back now to the zip code database workbook, and then going back to the FSO workbook, and then we ended it. So where we ended it is there's still two workbooks open in memory. So what I'm going to do is start up the macro recorder again, and now I'm going to call this one close it code. And so I'm going to, so now the recorder is going. I'm going to go over to the zip code database, and then I'm going to do file close. Do you want to save changes you made? No, I don't want to save them. And so now that one has been removed from memory by closing, and that's all I wanted to do. So we'll stop recording, and let's go look at the code that was created for that. So really all I did was I moved from the FSO worksheet to the zip code worksheet by using the method activate, and then active workbook close, and that closed it. So there you go. So the things you could do for customization, instead of a string for the file name, you could use a file object from the Microsoft Scripting Runtime library. Inside here, where you're doing a lot of moving from cell to cell, we've had some examples of that already. So this is where you would put your custom code to do whatever it is you want to do inside the worksheet once it's in memory. Moving from workbook to workbook, again, this isn't very dynamic since you have a file name in quotes. So again, you might want to use a a file object for that, and that's kind of how it goes. This is very easy. The macro recorder makes this extremely easy, so I love to use it. It saves me a lot of time. Okay, so let's wrap up. Today we did a short review of the Microsoft Scripting Runtime library, looked at a few of its most important objects. Then I demonstrated how to write code to open and close an Excel workbook file right here. The macro recorder is the key. It makes it so easy. Next time, it's going to get a little more difficult. We're going to continue with file input-output, but we'll begin our coverage of text file processing. This is a little more involved, much more interesting. So that's it for today. I hope this was helpful. Please subscribe to this video series and write comments about anything that wasn't clear. I monitor the comments and I will definitely respond. So we'll see you next time.